Wait. It came down with a case of taking myself way too seriously again, so I'll just jump right in it at the risk of idiocy. It's the 13th of June, 2021. And I guess I'm in a humorous mood. I thought of some jokes to share with you. Not tell you, not perform for you, but more participate with. Participate in with you. But as soon as the little red button goes on, I become so serious again, I guess. It's funny. It's hard for me to get away from being this person. The super serious person. Which is funny because I don't know, when I'm not here talking to you, it's almost impossible. You know, when I'm out doing life, living, it's almost impossible for me to get away from being the fool, you know? I don't understand that about myself. I was hoping I could be a little cheerful here. I felt like sharing that with you, sharing that with someone. I find it difficult, and I don't know why. So I record these and I look at them and try to figure out why. I suppose these journals are an attempt to learn how to live in the world. To learn how to live in the same world, in reality. The same world that I live or I see in my mind. You know, to like synchronize the reality of like how I live in my own head and how I live, you know, with you or anyone or anywhere. Why that isn't just a natural thing that happens that you take for granted, you know, why that isn't just another one of the things on the list that operates behind the scenes without you even knowing. I don't understand. But I do understand that it seems to happen for some people and not others. I don't know, maybe it's universal and you only see glimpses of other people, other personalities at times. And they always seem like synchronized with everything else. They don't seem particularly in their own heads. Or maybe that, I don't know, I don't understand. You can tell when someone is really in the moment because they are kind of foolish or fun or a little idiotic, maybe. Or at least they have the capacity for that. Or at least they have the tolerance for that. And it's interesting. It's a little mortifying, but it's something about it captivates me to watch people under stress lose their tolerance for that. Like, as an attempt to stay synchronized with reality, to like maintain control or whatever. It's kind of like this ironic marker, this signifier. I'm not sure what it says exactly, but you can always tell that someone who's really in control, they're like not stressed about it, about anything. It's one of the things that will tell any observer how much control they have. That's kind of a strange topic for conversation, I guess. But there's a lesson. It's important, and there's a lesson that comes out of it that we may or may not realize the ultimate significance of. And the lesson is simply that it's kind of like the heart of a child thing, Anyone who deals in matters from like a high perch that has like a cheerful demeanor about it, it probably means that they're doing a good job. That like inspires confidence in you. Maybe that's the whole thing where totalitarian control comes in, is that that fact is recognized and taken for granted. And so, in order to maintain this visage of nonchalance, an entire propaganda apparatus is necessary. Because in fact, authoritarians are super stressed all the time. Isn't that interesting? I wish I could get my hands on something, play with it a little bit, to kind of flesh that out and see what happened, operate with that as a premise, experiment on some authoritarians, experiment on some people in power. That would be fascinating, wouldn't it? I've certainly lost my sense of glee. It was I made a joke about bread pudding for you earlier. Which is absurd. How funny could bread pudding be? But I don't know. It made me laugh out loud. I try to economize as much on my food budget as possible. And I like hem and haw, you know. I like to treat myself, but ultimately, like, you know, you eat everything that you have. And I've been doing that long enough that I've kind of unearthed, completely unintentionally, some classic, like, peasant folk wisdom about food. Bread pudding was an example of that. So I bought this bread, right? And I couldn't store it, and it became stale. I couldn't consume it all. I didn't throw it away, even though it's super cheap, right? It's not like molded yet or anything. I'm like, I'll figure out something to do with it. Even though I could just, again, toss it and buy a new loaf or whatever. And so, well, I broke it into pieces. Like after you run out of food, you know, the food that you've been avoiding eating is the food that you're left with, you know? Excuse me. So I had this stale bread. Left over from the end of a previous batch of groceries or whatever. And I still wanted to eat it. And I'm like, how do I eat this stale bread? I can't just gnaw on it. I'm not going to do that. I'm really not going to just have stale bread and water. And so I covered it with milk. And it became like soggy again. And the milk was fresh, you know. And it was kind of delicious. Maybe the timing was just right. Like I was super hungry at the end of a grocery run. Didn't want to have to go to the store again. And I rediscovered the origin of bread pudding. It was just milk and stale bread. It's a way to make the most out of stale bread. And you know what? It was fucking delicious. It was perfect. I always really liked bread pudding. I didn't have sugar in it or anything like that. It was just milk and bread that had been re-moisturized. And I was just like, God, this is the perfect food. Such an ancient food, you know. People have been eating bread pudding for a long time. And what made it funny to me was that I discovered it more or less organically. You can order bread pudding or whatever, and it's like specially made for you. But the reality of it is that it's kind of like a storage dish, you know. And to find that out and be gratified by it, you know, like not just but physically nourished by it, satisfied. In a way, it's free food, right? Because it's like leftover from whatever you had. There's value in that. And what made it funny to me was the idea that that kind of value, it's only in a very specific domain. And it's, despite the fact that it's so primary, it's rare, it's been deprecated. No one actually does that. In reality now you get this kind of bread pudding that, you know, is delicious and a dessert, but it's not the same thing. Like you go out of your way to make it, you know. And so it kind of doesn't nourish in the same way. I guess that's still kind of like a afterthought of the whole value thing that I was thinking about. I don't know. I was gonna be cheerful, but this is all I got. Let's keep making recordings every day. I'm surprised how easily it is to like slip away from that. Let's make them shorter and more to the point. Bread pudding made me laugh in the kitchen by myself. I wish you were there. That's all I got for Sunday, the 13th of June. I'll see you tomorrow.